I'm a 22-year-old guy and lately, I've started to suspect there might be something going on between my girlfriend, Alexis also 22, and my friend Derek 21. The three of us, plus one more roommate, all live together, and I can't tell if I'm just being paranoid or if there's actually something to worry about. But honestly, if my gut feeling is right, things are about to get seriously messy. Please tell me I'm overthinking. Here's some background. We're two couples living under one roof. We all go to the same university. The lease for the apartment was originally signed by Alexis and her close friend Brooke, also 22. It's a massive place and not cheap. Initially, they planned to share it with a third girl, but she dropped out last minute. They were considering moving somewhere more affordable, but they'd already put so much work into making the place feel like home and really didn't want to leave. At the time, I was already spending a lot of nights there, so I offered to officially move in once my own lease ended in May. That way, rent and utilities could be split 3 ways. Alexis and Brooke were both thrilled about it. Right before I moved in, Brooke started dating Derek, my best friend. That worked out well for all of us. We could hang out as couples, and it felt like everything just clicked. Not long after, Derek's parents sold their house and moved out of state. He didn't really have anywhere to go, so he moved in with us temporarily around October. We haven't really pushed him to find a new place yet, since splitting the bills 4 ways has made things a lot easier financially. Even though only Alexis and Brooke are technically on the lease, the landlord doesn't care as long as the rent gets paid and we keep things quiet. Now, here's where things get complicated. There have been 3 specific moments that made me start questioning what's really going on. I wouldn't normally jump to any conclusions. Alexis is a sweet, quiet girl, and Derek's like a brother to me, but the details of these moments keep circling in my head. The first weird thing happened on a Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, days when Brooke and I have early classes and are usually out of the apartment by 8 a.m. Alexis and Derek don't start class until later, so it's pretty common for them to leave around the same time. They usually drive separately. One day, I decided to surprise Alexis after class with lunch. I waited outside her lecture hall and watched as the students trickled out, but she wasn't among them. Confused, I texted her asking where she was. She replied, saying she had just gotten out of class and was heading home to study. I immediately called her, thinking maybe I'd somehow missed her in the crowd, but she didn't pick up. Which struck me as odd, since she had literally just texted me seconds before. She didn't return my call until much later, which is out of character. She's usually glued to her phone. Later that day, I bumped into Brooke, and she casually mentioned Derek had stayed home sick and she was going to bring him some soup. At the time, I didn't think much of it. But when I got home that night, I noticed Alexis's car was parked exactly where she usually leaves it in guest parking. Since our unit only has 3 official spots, she normally has to move her car a lot, so it's rare for it to stay in the same place all day. I asked her if she had actually gone to class, and she hesitated before admitting that she skipped because she thought the professor was terrible at explaining things. She knows I'm not a fan of her skipping. It's been an issue before, especially when her grades started slipping, but lately she's been doing better, so I let it go. I gave her a kiss and told her I trusted her to make the right call. While I was washing the dishes, she circled back to the topic and told me she didn't think she'd skip again. She said she probably wouldn't skip again because staying home alone all day was way too boring. I laughed it off and we went about our evening. But that night, as I was lying in bed, almost asleep, something clicked. She shouldn't have been alone. Derek was supposed to be homesick, right? She was still scrolling on her phone, so I sat up and asked, "Hey, where was Derek today?" Brooke said he stayed homesick. She looked a little caught off guard by the question, but maybe that was just because I suddenly went from half asleep to wide awake with a random thought. She said he was around that morning but went out later to run errands or something. She wasn't really sure. At the time, it felt like a harmless answer, but looking back on it now, especially after everything else, I can't help but feel like she was dodging. Incident 2. A few days later, I went to toss something in the kitchen trash when I noticed a condom wrapper peeking out from behind a cereal box. It instantly caught my eye because it was the same brand Alexis and I use, Trojans, not the free ones from the university clinic that Brooke and Derek always use. It struck me as odd because we all keep our bedroom trash separate for things like that. Stuff like this never ends up in the kitchen. What made it weirder was that Alexis and I hadn't slept together in a few days, exams, stress, the usual. I didn't want to go digging through the trash for proof or anything, so instead I quietly checked our stash later. It's hard to tell if any were missing since we usually buy them in bulk. My first thought was that maybe Brooke and Derek ran out and dipped into ours without asking, which honestly annoyed me. That night, I casually mentioned the wrapper to Alexis and brought up the idea that maybe Brooke and Derek had taken one. Her eyes went wide and she got seriously upset, way more than I expected. She started going off about how it was a violation of our privacy and boundaries. I suggested we just talk to them about it, and she shut it down immediately. She made me promise not to bring it up unless it happened again, saying it would just be an awkward and unnecessary confrontation. I found that kind of strange. We've always been pretty open about this stuff since we all lived together. Then again, Alexis grew up in a conservative small town, and she's not as open about sex as the rest of us, so maybe that was genuine. Incident 3. Derek and I are friendly with a few of the grad students who live in the apartment next door. We're not close or anything, but we make small talk, usually about sports, and we're on good enough terms to ask each other to turn the volume down without it being awkward. Last Monday, during our class break, I was locking up the apartment, no one else was home, when I bumped into one of the guys. We started chatting about football, and out of nowhere, he joked that one of the couples in our apartment really liked early morning sex, and that the walls were way too thin. At first I laughed. Alexis and I used to hook up on weekend mornings when we had the place to ourselves. Brooke and Derek were usually out of town on the weekends, visiting her parents who live about an hour and a half away. But as the day went on, the comments started to bug me. It dawned on me that Alexis and I hadn't had morning sex in weeks. Lately, if anything, it's been in the evenings, or not at all. So if it wasn't us, was he hearing them? And on weekdays? My stomach dropped. I thought about asking the neighbor to clarify, but it felt like that moment had passed. Plus, how would I even bring that up? Hey man, can you describe the moans you've been hearing? That's insane, right? Maybe I'm just spiraling. Maybe it's nothing. So now I'm stuck here wondering, am I overthinking this? Am I piecing together little things that don't really mean anything? Or is there actually something going on? I haven't confronted Alexis yet for a couple reasons. I don't want to come across as jealous or paranoid if there's nothing to worry about. If something is happening, I don't want to tip them off and make them sneakier. Lately, I've been thinking about just casually dropping by the apartment on one of those mornings, see what I find. They're often alone together, but I haven't figured out the right time to catch them. If I show up too early or too late, I might just make them more careful. Update. A lot of people asked for an update to my original post. Most of you recommended that I either confront Brooke or try to walk in on something firsthand. I ended up planning to do both. On Sunday night, everyone was home. I was waiting for a chance to pull Brooke aside and ask her about the neighbor's comment, but before I could say anything, she dropped a bomb that completely threw me off. She told Derek to get to bed so he wouldn't be tired for work in the morning. What? Derek's always worked night shifts on campus, or so I thought. Trying to stay casual, I asked him how long he'd been working mornings. He said he picked up extra shifts about a month ago and starts at 9 a.m. That actually checks out with my schedule. I usually leave the apartment around 7:45, so I wouldn't have noticed the change. But that only made my head spin more. Was he telling the truth? Was he still at home some mornings? Was Alexis seeing someone else in the mornings, like a few of you had suggested? Or was I just losing my mind, creating problems out of nothing? I went to bed drained and full of questions. The next morning, I left for class as usual, barely registering anything around me. My brain kept bouncing between thoughts. Should I rush home and check on Alexis? Or was I being ridiculous, wasting time I didn't have when I had so much riding on my finals? I didn't even make it to my second class. I walked out, got in my car, and headed straight home. Looking back, a part of me wishes I hadn't. Derek's car wasn't in the driveway. Just Alexis's. As I walked up to the apartment, my heart was pounding so hard it hurt. I didn't know what I expected to find, but I wasn't ready for what I did find. Outside the door, I could hear a man's voice inside. He was laughing, talking, and I could hear a girl, Alexis, giggling and responding in that soft, flirty tone. At first I froze. I leaned closer, trying to make out the words, but only caught pieces. More laughing. Then the sound of Alexis squealing, like someone was tickling her. I should have waited. I really should have. But I couldn't. The second my key touched the lock, the apartment went dead silent. She wasn't with Derek. She was with Mark. Yeah, Mark. I never mentioned him before. He's one of the grad students in the apartment next door, not the guy who tipped me off, but the other one. The one I've never liked. He always gave off a sleazy vibe, constantly made weird comments toward both girls. I never thought he was serious. Guess I was wrong. When I opened the door, the two of them were sitting there, looking completely frozen. That expression, eyes wide, guilty as hell, killed any chance that this could be explained away. I wanted to scream. Demand answers. But, and this is the worst part, I just stood there as my eyes filled with tears. I didn't want them to see me cry, so I spat out, "Nice. Really classy," and walked out. I heard Alexis calling my name as I bolted down the hallway, but she didn't follow. By the time I reached my car, she was gone. I drove to the park near our place and just sat there, trying to process what the hell had just happened. Weirdly, the first thing that crossed my mind was, what am I going to tell my family? They adored Alexis. My parents joked about us getting married, already called her part of the family. Then the logistics hit me. Finals are in 2 weeks. I can't move out right now. I'm in the middle of applying to a highly competitive grad program. My future is hanging by a thread. I can't let this derail me. I won't. Right now, I'm writing this from a friend's place. I'm staying at a friend's place now. When I told him what happened, he explained everything to his parents, and they were kind enough to let me crash at their house. It's temporary, but I'm beyond grateful. I'll have to go back to the apartment soon to grab some clothes. I'm thinking of doing it during a lab period. Alexis has a class she can't skip, so I know she won't be there. It took about an hour for her to start blowing up my phone. Once she started, she didn't stop. At first, she was begging me to come home so she could explain. Before I even had time to process that message, another came in. She said she was having an anxiety attack and needed me. That used to be my cue. I'd always be there when that happened. But this time? All I could think was, good. You earned it. Then the tone shifted. If any of you reading this have been through something similar, if you've had to pick up the pieces after something like this, please share your advice. Anything. I'm listening. Edit. I can't thank you all enough. The support in the comments and messages has meant more than I can say. I've read every reply on both posts, even if I haven't responded to them all. I will tell Derek and Brooke. I'm working up to it. Once I do, I'll post a follow-up with whatever plan I come up with. Update 2. The outpouring of support from Reddit has honestly stunned me. Between the comments, DMs, and the inbox messages, I have this massive collection of advice, pep talks, and personal stories. I've been reading through them whenever things get heavy, which is often. And wow, people from all walks of life, different ages, different experiences, somehow they all knew exactly what I needed to hear. I never thought just writing about the worst day of my life would bring so much light into it. I even made it to r/best of. Someone gave me 6 Reddit gold. Life's weird. A few people messaged me suggesting I go full red pill or that I should give up on love altogether. Let me say this, what happened to me hurt like hell, but it hasn't poisoned my view of women. Just her. And yeah, I've seen a few folks claiming I write too well, so this must all be fake. I don't even know what to say to that. I wish this was fiction. To the people saying this has to be made up, I've got 2 words for you, I wish. Let me clarify something from the last update. When I walked in on Alexis and Mark, they weren't literally in the act. They were sitting on the couch, but the way they froze, the way the room went dead silent, was enough. It wasn't the reaction you get when someone's just hanging out and a roommate unexpectedly walks in. It was a busted kind of silence. No one said a word. And that somehow said everything. Anyway, here's the real update. With finals around the corner, I took the majority of your advice and buried myself in schoolwork. I've been practically living at the library, partly to avoid Alexis, since she's been going there too. Also partly because, honestly, I couldn't stand being in that apartment. Every corner feels like it has her fingerprints on it. While writing the last post, it hit me how dumb it was that I still hadn't told Derek and Brooke what really happened. I just let it hang in the air, hoping the truth would somehow speak for itself. But Alexis is probably already rewriting the story in her favor. So I finally sent them a screenshot of the text I got from the good neighbor. Side note, all the names I've used are fake except for Mark. Because screw you, Mark. Within minutes, Derek was blowing up my phone, calls, texts, all of it. It was obvious he had no idea what was going on. At the same time, Alexis started flooding me with texts again. Begging to meet up. Apologizing. Pleading. I was still too raw to handle any of it. I sent Derek one short message. I'm not feeling up to talking right now. Then I shut my phone off for the night. The next morning, I woke up to a text from Derek. He asked me to meet him at my favorite restaurant after class, his treat. He promised it would just be him. No Brooke. Definitely not Alexis. I didn't have much of an appetite, but that offer meant more than I expected. I really missed him, and I wanted to see where we stood. So I said yes. I got there first, heart pounding the whole time. Some part of me still expected Alexis to show up out of nowhere. But she didn't. Just Derek, who came in, gave me a huge hug, and opened with, "Dude! What the hell?" And then, things got wild. A lot of you guessed Brooke might have known about the cheating, or even helped cover it up. I didn't believe that. Yeah, she's closer to Alexis, but I've been friends with Brooke longer. Turns out, she didn't know anything. And when Derek told her, she went ballistic. According to him, she was angrier than he was. His exact words. "I kinda wanted to yell at Alexis myself, but Brooke handled it, and then some." Now, remember how I said Alexis was from a super conservative small town? Her parents didn't even know she was living with me. She always made it clear that if they found out, they'd cut her off financially. They liked me enough, but barely. Always worried I was going to distract her from school, or worse, get her pregnant. Well, Brooke threatened to call them. She told Alexis to pack her stuff and move out, or else she'd tell her parents everything. No more tuition help, no more allowances, no more pretending. Later that night, Derek said Alexis was in the living room, holding one of my sweaters, crying like her life was over. Brooke yelled from her bedroom, "Well, maybe you shouldn't have ****ed Mark then." Asterisk. I'll be honest. That part made me laugh. Brooke's always been a no-nonsense type, kind of fiery when she's mad, but I never expected her to go that hard for me. It meant a lot. It made me feel like I hadn't lost everyone. That dinner with Derek washed away so many fears. For the first time since everything went down, I felt okay. Not great, but okay. I even managed to eat a little sushi. When we finished, Derek told me he'd let me know once Alexis was out of the apartment so I could move back in. But I said no. Even if she does leave, that place is haunted. Every room, every mug, every stupid blanket reminds me of her. Derek and Brooke too, in a way. They were part of that life. And honestly, Mark and Alexis probably hooked up in my room. There's no way I could sleep in there again. Given the state I was in, moving back in didn't feel right. I didn't want to be a third wheel in a happy couple's apartment, even if Derek and Brooke would absolutely go out of their way to make me feel welcome. Derek understood where I was coming from, but told me the offer would stay open. Especially since, according to him, Brooke and Alexis's friendship was very much over. This past week's been relatively quiet, but that doesn't mean it's been easy. I've been doing my best to avoid Alexis. Since I'm in a small undergrad program with only about 60 students, we share a lot of classes. I filled in 2 friends on what happened, just the SparkNotes version, and asked them to be on lookout duty. Now I show up to class right as it starts and bolt as soon as it ends. As far as I know, Alexis has only waited outside one of them. When she did, I got a text from one of my friends. "Alexis spotted outside classroom. Waterworks in progress. Proceed with caution." I ended up skipping that one. I didn't want to risk the scene. Not yet. That night, she sent me a huge Facebook message. I debated whether to read it. Honestly, my stomach turned at the thought, but once it was open, I couldn't stop. She started from the beginning. Said Mark had been flirty with her in the halls for a while. As I mentioned before, he was known for saying inappropriate stuff to both her and Brooke. She said she was just trying to be nice, but maybe it came off as flirty, because one day, mid-sentence, he kissed her. According to her, she felt guilty afterward. Thought she'd led him on. And that guilt, she claimed, is what kept her from shutting him down after that. She said she has a hard time saying no, and things spiraled. They'd only slept together 3 times, she said, and she hated it. Claimed he pressured her, that it wasn't assault, but it wasn't consensual either. I never said yes. She told me they were talking that day, when I walked in, because she was going to end it. Then came the part where she begged for a second chance. She said she understood if I needed time and space, but that she'd do anything to earn me back. Promised she'd spend the rest of her life making it up to me. She offered the full fantasy. I'd never have to cook, clean, or do laundry again. I could have full access to her phone and all her passwords. She even suggested we install Life 360 so I could track her location in real time. She'd cut off Mark and every other guy friend, just in case. And of course, make up sex whenever I wanted. Because yeah, that sounds super healthy. I didn't respond. For a second, I thought about keeping her on Facebook just to watch the drama unfold. She was posting cryptic song lyrics, dramatic statuses, a few lines from our song. But I know myself. I would have ended up checking her page obsessively, going through old photos, making it all worse. So I blocked her. A few hours later, Derek texted me. "She's crying and screaming about you blocking her. LOL. In much happier news, the family I'm staying with has been incredible. I felt kind of guilty taking up space and running their electric bill, so I offered to chip in for rent or cover some utilities. I'm unemployed right now, but my parents give me a solid allowance for food and housing. Still, they wouldn't take it. The dad smiled, winked and said, "First month's free. If you need more time, we'll talk then." My friend later told me that his family's hosted people going through rough patches before. His family's used to hosting people in tough spots. His sisters had her share of troubled friends, so it wasn't a big deal to them. Still, I can't express how grateful I am. As for Will, the awesome neighbor who tipped me off, I called to thank him. I'm not ready to invite him to dinner or anything yet, but I'll get there. He was incredibly apologetic, said he cannot stand Mark, not just for what happened with Alexis, but for a laundry list of other things I didn't really want to hear about. Apparently, Mark's been laying low. Told one of the guys he got dumped. Whatever. I don't want to waste more energy thinking about him. So that's where things are. I'm still close with Derek and Brooke, but I've decided to keep some distance for now. It's not their fault, but being around them just brings back too many memories of Alexis. I messaged Brooke to thank her for everything, especially for kicking Alexis out. She replied that she would have done it regardless of whether I moved back in. Said she'll let me know when Alexis is gone so I can grab the rest of my stuff. In the meantime, I've thrown myself into studying, applying to grad schools, and hanging out with the guy I'm staying with. Earlier this week, I posted in my university's Facebook group looking for roommates for next semester. I've already gotten a few replies. I'll deal with that after finals. I haven't told my parents yet. I'll wait until the semester ends. My mom has a habit of asking a million questions, and I don't have the energy to rehash everything. Lastly, thank you, seriously, for all the support. I didn't expect this much attention, and even though part of me is paranoid that someone might recognize the story, the truth is, I needed this. I really did. You guys helped me stay sane. I freaking love you all. Update 3. 22M suspect something between my girlfriend 22F and my friend 21M. We all live together. Am I imagining things? I honestly hadn't planned to write another update. But some of you asked, and after everything, I do feel like I owe you. Finals are over. I did okay, considering. But once the academic pressure lifted, everything hit me hard. Almost worse than the day it all blew up. It felt like someone pulled the rug out from under 2 years of my life. We had been inseparable. All those little rituals, routines, songs, memories, suddenly they meant nothing. I deleted every photo of us. Took our songs off my playlists. Got rid of the stuff she gave me or that reminded me of her. I just wanted it all gone before New Year's. I know that sounds cliché, New Year, new me, but it felt like something I had to do. Then I got a message from a Redditor, someone who had been following the story. They said something that haunted me a bit. Alexis might be in a really dark place now. She lost everything, her boyfriend, her best friends, her apartment. I wouldn't be surprised if she was thinking about suicide. I know. It sounds dramatic. Maybe it is. But I couldn't get it out of my head. What Alexis did was awful. There's no excuse. But I also couldn't shake the feeling that if I didn't give her some kind of closure, I might regret it. And maybe she needed it too, to move on. So yeah, I decided to meet up with her. I know a lot of people were in the ghost her forever camp, and I get it. I really do. But this wasn't for her. It was for me. I sent her a message that said, "If you want to talk, we can meet. But just so we're clear, there's no chance of us getting back together. Please don't ask." She replied almost instantly, asking when and where. We met at a small off-campus coffee shop. She was already there when I arrived. When she stood to hug me, I waved her off. She froze, then shrank back into her seat like a kicked puppy. I felt awful for a second, but I reminded myself why I was there. I wasn't going to let her guilt me into anything. She asked about finals. How I'd been. I gave short answers, then cut to the point. I asked her if she had been unhappy in our relationship. I asked her directly. "Were you unhappy in our relationship?" Her eyes went wide. She immediately shook her head and said, "No, no, no," over and over until she fell quiet. So I pressed. "Then why?" She started retelling the same story. That she had trouble saying no, that Mark was pushy, that it all just happened. I cut her off. "Stop. Just stop. Maybe I could accept that excuse for the first time. Maybe even when he kissed you mid-sentence. But 3 times? Come on." She looked down, shrugged, and quietly said, "You're right. I know. Tears started forming. She said she was so sorry, that I'd never understand just how sorry. And then, just like I knew she would, she asked if there was any chance we could ever get back together. I didn't even respond. Just shook my head. I told her she could still stay with Derek and Brooke if she wanted to. But she said no, she was planning to move in with another friend. After that, the conversation just went in circles. She kept trying to explain it all away, how she had a hard time turning guys down, how scared she was of being seen as frigid, how she just wanted people to like her. I pushed back. Probably harder than I should have. I needed her to stop hiding behind that excuse. I needed her to admit that she chose to ruin something good. That this was entirely on her. But she wouldn't. She's always been stubborn. Eventually, I let it go. As I was getting up to leave, she reached out and grabbed my hand. She opened her mouth like she was about to say something, but just shook her head and let go. I left feeling worse than when I'd walked in. But later, it started to hit me, even without the cheating, this wasn't the person I wanted to build a life with. She never took responsibility for anything. Failed a class? The professor was trash. Couldn't find a job or an internship? Must be bad luck. It was always someone else's fault. I'd ignored it for a long time. I think I was still wearing the rose-colored glasses. Or maybe I just didn't want to admit how much I'd settled. So, after the coffee shop, I texted Derek and asked if he wanted to hang out. I ended up at the apartment. Brooke was there, but she mostly stayed in her room. Derek and I cracked open a couple beers, played video games, talked about everything that had happened. It felt good. At one point, he told me they hadn't found a third roommate. Everyone who applied was either a stranger or didn't vibe with him. He asked again if I'd consider moving back in. I could tell he really wanted me to say yes. And honestly, I was starting to miss the place. I felt guilty about them being stuck with Elise too. So I said yes. I told them I'd move back in after Alexis cleared her stuff out. Most of the furniture is hers anyway, stuff she brought in before I even moved in, and I definitely don't want to sleep in that bed again. Brooke also apologized for how involved she got, for yelling at Alexis. Said it hit close to home because her stepdad cheated on her mom, and it brought up a lot. I told her it didn't bother me at all. In fact, I told her she was welcome to do it again if the mood ever struck. Later, I treated Will to some food and drinks from a great spot near campus as a thank you. A bunch of you asked what else Mark did that pissed everyone off. Turns out he was just the classic nightmare roommate. Always had to be reminded to pay rent. Never chipped in for house stuff, soap, paper towels, light bulbs, whatever. Would barge in at random hours laughing and shouting. You'd ask him to keep it down, and he'd say, "Sure, my bad," and then carry on like nothing happened. So yeah, just your standard all-around jackass. Will's a chill guy though. We talked a lot. Not just about Alexis, but about life, school, sports. It was actually fun. Felt normal for the first time in a while. Eventually, I told my parents everything. Exactly as expected, my mom cried and asked about 1,000 questions. That was fun. Going home for the holidays helped, a little. But then my older brother got engaged on Christmas Eve. And yeah? Given everything I'd just been through, I wasn't as excited for my brother as I should have been when he got engaged. And I hated that about myself. It made me feel like a crappy sibling. But honestly, I just wasn't in the right headspace for joy that big. Especially not someone else's. Now it's all my family can talk about. I get it. But I'm just not there yet. Life's not perfect now, but it's better. Alexis officially moved out. I bought a used bed and dresser from another student, and finally feel like my space is actually mine again. The new semester started last week, and, nerd alert, I'm really enjoying my classes. They're super hands-on, and the professors are actually awesome. Derek and Brooke have been amazing. They don't make me feel like a third wheel at all. If anything, they've gone out of their way to help me feel included without it being weird or forced. I saw Mark in the hallway once. We both ignored each other. But the urge to punch him in the face? Still very real. That's something I'm hoping fades with time. I actually considered calling him out, but from everything Will told me, he's not the type who'd admit anything or even have a real conversation. It would have just left me angrier. So yeah, sorry if this update isn't as dramatic or intense as the last ones. It's just real life again. Slowly settling back into some version of normal. And honestly, that's all I want right now. And here's what I'll tell you at the very end. You watch this story to the end, it means only one thing: this video format suits you. You should subscribe to the channel to continue listening to similar stories in this format. Thank you, all of you, for the love and support. I didn't expect the response I got from my first post, but it helped more than I can say. Reddit, you got me through something really rough, and I'll always be grateful for that.